The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
This is Talkin Cowboys.
Broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California.
Handoff, Elliott plowing to the goal line. Barry, sacked by Lord. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it in for the touchdown.
And now your hosts, Mickey Spagnola, Rob Phillips, and Kyle Yeomans.
For the first time in the 2022 season, Talkin Cowboys is back on DallasCowboys.com. Training camp in Oxnard, California, and we are live from Radio Row. Glad to be back on the Cowboys Podcast Network. We've got Mickey Spagnola here, back with Talkin Cowboys as we are on the West Coast. Rob Phillips, our normal member of the show. Was that you trying to imitate Mickey there?
He's my hero, so yes.
Oh,
we're just flexing our muscles.
Yes.
Very nice. So you have some muscles because of your bike ride earlier this morning.
Well, I don't know in my arms. I don't know if I did much with that, but it was a nice ride this morning, as a matter of fact.
Nice ride because guess what? It's 68 degrees, even that. I don't even know if it's that high yet. It was 61 this morning when I woke up, but it is phenomenal out here. The Cowboys are getting back in the swing of things, and, of course, we'll have Isaiah Stanback on, Heckma Harrison on, and we'll kind of get back into the normal groove of things when we get back to Texas, but right now – we've got Mickey, we've got Rob, myself, Kyle Yeomans, Chris Beam running everything in the back. It feels right to be back here, Rob, to be back on Talkin Cowboys because not only have we gotten to see practice, so we have a little bit to talk about. We've had a roster move today that we're going to get to dive into, and then, of course, the expectations will kind of set the stage for the remainder of training camp as we do hit these shows every other day. But I want to let you kind of open things up. What have been your initial thoughts over these first couple days in Oxnard?
Yeah, well, we had a hour-plus State of the Union with a lot of interesting thoughts, I think, on their philosophy and their approach and their expectations for the season. We can get into that. And then, yesterday's practice, kind of resembling an OTA-style practice where no pads, the pace is not, at full blast yet. It's that ramp-up period, which, by the way, the NFL mandates that all teams do that leading up the first week. Before they get into pads. First padded practice will be Monday, August 1st. But you again, like OTAs, you can see what guys are doing moving around, see what guys are doing, where they're lining up, and just kind of go from there. And there's some interesting stuff going on out there. We saw Micah Parsons doing Micah Parsons things. They're getting rolling, and the padded stuff will be the most interesting though, for sure.
Yeah, we finally get going. And you look forward, because when we're in OTAs, mini camps, you're always sitting there going, okay, wait to training camp because we got to see it, right? And then we get here, and it's OTAs and mini camps for 4 days. So, everything you see in these first few practices, you kind of got to take with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
They don't have pads on. But I think what we can ascertain from what we've seen is how they're using guys, where they're lining guys up. And so, yeah, it's hard to make any evaluations of who's doing what in a first padless practice. But I thought the best thing I saw yesterday was Jabril Cox did not get placed on PUP.
Huge.
That he was out there practicing. And when you look at the depth chart at linebacker, they would love if he could be the third guy. They need him to be the third guy. And he went out there with the second-team defense at linebacker, and they really need him to do what they thought he could do when they drafted him in the 4th round. He got off to a slow start. 7 games in, he tears his ACL, had to rehab, missed all the OTAs and minicamp practices, continuing to rehab. But it looks like he's ready to go. And I thought seeing number 14 in blue out there was, a good step for this Cowboys team.
Well, let's talk about that for a little bit, just speaking on the guys who did go on the PUP list, Michael Gallup being one of those, Damone Clark, both of which not surprises. There were a couple surprises on that list overall, but I think the biggest, at least win for the Cowboys was having Cox available to start training camp. And Mike McCarthy said he was limited. He was going to be on a pitch count. He wasn't necessarily going to go full tilt right back in the thick of things. But yesterday, I mean, he was active in individual
I'll tell
drills.
you what,
He was
I don't
active
know
in team drills.
if they counted his snaps, but he seemed to be out there
it looked
quite
like
a bit.
full participant.
To me, it did because they switched it up at one point. He was out there initially with Gifford, and then he was out there with Devin Harper. But he was out there, and he was moving well. He was getting to the ball in the run game. So, yeah, we knew Gallup was going to be on PUP, right? We knew Damone Clark was going to be on NFI. There was a couple other guys placed on PUP. But I thought Cox was sort of in that no man's land, and they said he's ready to go. And if they say he's ready to go, then let's go.
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal, to get him ready for the start of training camp. They were never going to throw him out. Think about Blake Jarwin when he was here last year, coming off ACL. The goal is Oxnard, and they got through it. Britt Brown doing a great job, as usual, with the athletic training rehab process. So they need him to be Keanu Neal, basically. They need him to be maybe playing up to 50% of the snaps. We'll see. I mean, they like to play that big nickel with three safeties on the field. And Leighton Vander Esch out there, obviously Micah Parsons out there. But you mentioned the linebacker depth, Kyle. They need linebackers who can step in and play, especially it's a high attrition position. Things happen at that position, so you need guys to step in and have that depth, especially if you're going to move Micah around like they like to do. So that's big. That's big going forward.
On the rundown later in the show, I have basically biggest concerns heading into training camp. That'd probably be toward the top of my list, is depth at the linebacker position. Another one would have been depth at the wide receiver position at the same time, and that has been addressed at least as of this morning. Kevontae Turpin signed out of the USFL and off of the free agent market. He was not only in the USFL, he was the MVP of the league in its return back to football in 2022. TCU product, wide receiver, return specialist, and somebody who really kind of came to fruition during his collegiate years. He was a first-team All-Big 12 returner. He was an all-honorable mention wide receiver. Went undrafted in 2019, I believe, was the draft that he was in. I'll give you I'll give you a full rundown of him later. But what's your thoughts on the addition, Rob, when you look at what he could bring kind of to the depth of that wide receiver room that at the moment it has CeeDee Lamb at the top, and then it's pretty much a jumble of guys underneath.
This is an interesting. This is one of the most interesting early season camp signings that I can remember.
I can see a little twinkle in your eye, just a little bit.
Have you watched his highlights?
They're pretty fun.
They'll give you a twinkle in your eye. I mean, going back to TCU and like what you said with the New Jersey Generals in the USFL, he was the MVP. He led the league in receiving. He had a punt return touchdown there. Nick Ralston is waived to make room back into the roster, but you just mentioned it. They're looking for guys to step up at wide receiver, and he's not the biggest wide receiver. He's 5'9", Mick, and he is potentially a return specialist here if he can handle the receiver position as well. But that could be two different needs for them right there. If he could step in and have a good camp in preseason, where he could fill punt return spot and be a back-end receiver part of the rotation to help out. He's super shifty. He's super quick, and he could fill a couple needs for him.
So why did he end up in the USFL?
Small. That was pretty much the biggest thing. 5'9".
Is he still small?
So I will say, he's still 5'9". That hasn't necessarily changed.
Right.
But he was 155 pounds whenever he was going through his combine measurements.
No way.
155 pounds. I mean, he was small.
And there were off-the-field things, too.
There's a couple things.
Concerns that, along with the size, where, he's not drafted.
Yeah.
Right.
And he bounces around. I think he's 25 or 26. But he's getting a shot here after – he dominated that USFL competition. So he's going to get an opportunity.
He turns 26 in 5 days.
Oh, so there's another reason right there, right?
Yep.
No one's going to invest a lot of time in a guy that's headed towards 30. The second best thing I saw, since you brought up the wide receivers, that when the first team went out there, it was CeeDee Lamb, James Washington, and Jalen Tolbert. Mm-hmm. All three of those guys missed time in those off-season workouts. They missed practices, especially James Washington didn't do anything. So when I looked out there, it's like, number 83. Oh, yeah, James Washington, right?
Yeah.
And that was the best thing I saw. The next best thing from him is on a go route, he went right by Nashawn Wright on a deep ball that Dak missed him by about a foot. So he can run, and he's big. I didn't realize he was that big.
Yeah.
So that was good to see those three guys out there healthy. Tolbert started OTAs with a little something, and he missed some practices. CeeDee missed a few, right? And then participated in the home run derby that I bet no one was happy about.
From the training staff.
Yeah.
Fans were happy about it.
Yeah, right. And but to see those three guys out there together, that was a welcome sight. And then you can add this guy in, and can he beat out Noah Brown? Can he beat out Simi Fihoko? Can he beat out T.J. Vasher? I mean, that's where the competition's gonna come in.
Right.
But you were talking about returns. They were having Tolbert catch punts in the mini camp and the OTAs. And it's something that he wants to do. So I thought that was a good sign. But you know what? I still don't mind CeeDee back there catching punts and kind of use him like they did Des Bryant when they had what you would call an offensive punt, right, return, where the team's punting in their 20 or back, and it's like, okay, I'm going to catch this ball at the 50. I'm going to let this guy go because no one's releasing downfield when you're that close to your own goal line punting, right? So you got probably an extra second or so, and I just want to see the ball in CeeDee Lamb's hands any way they can do it.
I do too. I have a hard time seeing him being the featured guy again. Although he only had I want to say a dozen.
That's
returns
about right.
last year.
I'll get you the number.
He's not back there a lot, but he does have a massive role on offense now, even more so than he did in the past. So I could see that, like you said, Jalen Tolbert's a guy that they're looking at that position to return some punts. And I talked to him during OTAs, and it was something that he wanted to do back in college. And in one game he got a shot at it, but he was the best player on the team by far at South Alabama, and they didn't want to put him in that position. So he's somebody to watch, and I don't want to get too carried away with Turpin, but I do think he's a very talented young guy who even if he could find a role in this offense too. Think about Tony Pollard, a space player, a guy you get the ball in space, he can make things happen with his speed. So that's what they're looking at in addition to the punt returns.
Yeah, and I've heard people say, well, why don't they have Pollard return punts? He doesn't naturally catch the ball back there the way you would want a punt returner. Like when CeeDee Lamb catches a punt, it's none of this stutter step and adjusting. It's like
fluid.
The ball comes to him, right? He knows how to judge the ball, and Tolbert had a little bit of that. Now, in the USFL, the receiver that caught my eye was Bolden, who was the MVP of the championship game. Mm-hmm. This guy was really good, and I can't remember who they beat, whatever the team was.
It was the
somebody
Stallions
East Coast,
versus,
right? Somewhere.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Baltimore or Washington. I don't. Philly. That's it.
Thank you, Beam.
This guy, now he had something, and I was thinking to myself, somebody's going to sign him soon. Well, Arizona did about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And again, kind of the same size, like 5'9". But he's got some NFL experience. He's been on practice squads a couple times. So I was interested to see him. So if this guy is better than my Bolden guy, then okay, let's see what happens.
I think the biggest chance for him, we're not talking about a guy that's going to challenge to be in the rotation at receiver a significant amount of time in 2022. You're talking about a return specialist that could maybe spot duty for CeeDee Lamb and of course Tony Pollard. I mean, Lamb last year, just to give you a number, 14 punt returns, 139 yards, which is just under 10 yards per return on punts, which is pretty impressive.
That's a first down.
That's exactly. And then you turn around, you've got Tony Pollard. He had 17 kick returns for 489 yards and a touchdown as well.
Yeah, I think he would have to step in here and demonstrate that he can play wide receiver in the NFL, because not only would he be taking up a roster spot, he'd be taking up a game day roster spot if he's your punt returner. So he's got to be able to do a couple different things. That's one thing. Cedric Wilson was so valuable to this offense because not only could he handle that and split those duties with CeeDee Lamb back there, but I mean, there were times where it felt like he had as good a rapport with Dak Prescott in the passing game than any receiver on the roster.
He could step in and be your number 2 receiver. He could be your number 3 receiver, right? Somebody gets hurt, he comes in.
Yeah.
And good for him. He played 4 years here on basically a minimum base salary, and somebody paid him some money, and he earned it. He earned it.
You hate to lose a guy like that, but you can't keep everybody.
Yeah.
And that's, kind of the shame of free agency. But, you need somebody to go out and catch a safe punt. Okay, let's put Cedric there. You need to run an end around. Well, let's hand it to Cedric. You want to run an end around and throw a pass? Well, let Cedric do it, right? You hate to see it, have to leave. But, if you can find somebody that come close to what he meant to this team last year, would be great.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you'll severely miss from the roster, and you're going to have to find it maybe through young talent, and that's kind of been the buzzword around camp, at least from the opening press conference that Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Mike McCarthy had back on Tuesday. But when we come back here on Talkin Cowboys, what other rookies need to step up in year number one to fill some of those holes, and how risky of a strategy is it to rely so heavily on the youth? We're coming back in just a moment on Talkin Cowboys.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
This sweet! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is.
It's a non-fungible token. Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a broken traffic light. Stop and go is the name of my game. It's easy. You go, they go. Or was it, they go, you go? And if you have the wrong car insurance, these repair costs could stop you in your tracks. So get Allstate's new low auto rate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Not available in every state, based on coverage and limits selected. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Back here on Talking Cowboys, this segment brought to you by blockchain.com. So we are on Radio Row here in Oxnard, California. So good to be back. I keep saying that. We've been here for a little bit. This is just the first Talking Cowboys that we've had, but I feel like I've already done probably 4 shows each with you guys up until this point.
This will be the warmest day. It's supposed to hit 70.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
Oh, darn.
Take that vest off, Mick.
Short sleeves.
Oh, man, I'm going to have to lose the hoodie at some point along the way.
You'll need it at 4 o'clock.
That's what I say. Whenever we get done, I'm sure it'll start to fall down. But that's one of the biggest benefits. I'm sure everybody in Texas is tired of hearing about it while they sweat in 110-degree heat. But that's one of the benefits of coming out here is the fact that the players don't have to deal with the 110-degree heat, and you have better practices, more efficient practices.
It's like when we wake up, it's 58. It's 50 degrees difference.
50.
50.
That's Could you imagine 50 the other way?
And the people here are a little bit put off because it's been a little cooler here than normal, they tell me.
Really?
Yeah. It has been. The first couple days we were here, compared to past years out here, it's a little bit cooler.
Yeah. That almost infuriates
Texas,
me.
I'm sorry, Texas.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm mad for you, Texas, because trust me, I understand the pain. All right, let's get into some of these young guys and some of the biggest surprises early in camp, too. I'm going to ask you that toward the back end of this segment, but one of the biggest talking points was about availability and then replacing some of the veterans that they had lost in the offseason with young talent, with some of these guys that are trying to take the next step. For example, a CeeDee Lamb, who without Amari Cooper could take that step into the number 1 role. All signs at the moment point that he's ready for that challenge. All signs are saying he could be that number 1 receiver by quite a considerable margin. But how big is it to have young guys step up like that, Mickey, and mesh with the veterans? How important is it for that to be apparent in training camp this early on, so that way it kind of carries into the regular season?
Yeah, I don't know about early on, but at some point in training camp, yeah, they need these young guys to step up. And the biggest thing it does is help you manage your salary cap. So, you can afford $40 million a year on a quarterback and $20 million a year on a running back. And, whatever they're paying DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. You need to be supplementing your roster with young guys. And when they looked at it, they said availability. Well, it's availability / what's your base salary.
Sure.
Amari Cooper, if he wasn't making $20 million a year, would still be here. I don't know about La'el Collins because I thought he just had a bad season last year. Mm-hmm. And I know he's coming back from hip surgery, and I know he had the suspension. Mm-hmm. But Terrence Steele, if you looked at it, outplayed him. And now you got a $10 million base salary versus a $900,000 base salary.
Yep.
And if you're playing the same, well, you're in trouble if you're making the $10 million.
Yeah.
So some of those, they were nice talking about availability, but it was availability / cap space, money. And this is the first, what do you think, first training camp we've come to that they got $20 million sitting there under the cap that they can use?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and they didn't say, "Oh, we're going to use it this year for sure." Either.
Yeah,
right. They can carry all that money, and they'll use some of it because things happen, injuries happen. They might need to go get somebody at some point.
Yeah.
But you can carry over a lot of that to next year, and they've got guys coming up down the line that they need to re-sign. Trayvon Diggs is eligible for an extension after this season. He told us yesterday, he's trying to top 11 interceptions. Well, if he does that, then think about what that contract's going to look like.
Yep.
You can even look at CeeDee Lamb as well, and Micah Parsons a couple of years down the road.
And you want to keep Pollard.
Yes.
Terrence Steele's up, I believe, at the end of this year as well.
Right. So when that's why Stephen Jones always talks about looking at your cap 2-3 years down the road. They're trying to manage it with a macro view instead of a micro view, if you want to put it that way. But at the same time, I understand why fans look at it and say, could they have done a little bit more? Like Amari Cooper, I'm in the camp that said, and I believe CeeDee Lamb can be the top receiver on this team, but sure. I do think maybe you could have brought back Amari Cooper on a reworked deal like you did to Marcus Lawrence. They decided not to do that. Jerry talked about availability up there at the press conference. That's fine. They wanted to re-sign Randy Gregory. That just didn't work out. So there's some. It's not as generalized as we think. There's some different circumstances of why guys are not back. But yeah, the bottom line is it's some key positions. We talked about Jalen Tolbert. We talked Sam Williams at defensive end. There are going to be some young guys that, like Mickey said, at some point as we go through this process, are going to have to step up and contribute right away.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason Jerry said something like, how did he put it? He liked the position they were in going into this year.
Better than last year?
Yeah.
He feels like they're in better shape.
A little bit of that had to do with the $20 million. Because last year, if they needed to supplement, they couldn't make a move.
Didn't have anybody.
Now they can, although, I started looking at this list of free agents, not by position, just guys' names that are out there. They're all 30-something. You got to be careful with 30-something-year-olds, and you're certainly not going to. If they're not working on July 28th, you ought to get them for a song and a dance, right? Because they got to be looking up and going, oh, everybody's out there practicing, and I'm on my couch. That guy's making $5 million a year. I'm making nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing. But again, do you want to sign somebody 32 or 33? Well, you don't want to do that in camp because they're progress stoppers.
Exactly.
You don't get to work the young guys and find out. And I think McCarthy made the point about if Tony Romo and Kellen Moore don't get hurt, we may have never known Dak Prescott, right?
Yeah.
That's how he got his chance. So, yeah, sometimes you got to look at these guys. Some of them you drafted. Okay, you thought something of them. Well, give them a chance. And that's why when I wrote my column after that, it was like, okay, here's the land of opportunity. Now, can you take advantage of it? And that's what we're here to find out.
How risky of a strategy is that, though, from a front office standpoint? Because, I mean, you could argue that there's nothing more unpredictable in the NFL than young talent that's undeveloped. And that's one of the big – that's why coaches get paid what they do. That's why coaching staffs are so heralded as they are. I mean, it's because you have to develop young talent. So when you're relying so heavily on that youth to fill the holes immediately, I mean, you got lucky last year with the Micah Parsons. That's a once-in-a-generational type of rookie that came up and played that way. How risky is it to rely on that to potentially happen again, Rob?
Well, Jerry said it up there to our left here the other day that everything's about projections in this league. You don't know. I mean, even they're experts at this, the scouting department, the personnel department, but you don't know for sure. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. In 2018, they projected that they had a group of wide receivers that can help supplement, replace what Des Bryant did. Well, that didn't work out.
Isn't that similar to kind of what they're doing now?
I think the difference is, and I think as we're talking about this, wide receiver comes to my mind first. I think if we're looking at a position where we have the most unknowns, it's probably that one.
Yeah.
And you can look at offensive line and see what happens at left guard and all that. But I think receiver without Michael Gallup for maybe the first couple games of the season, we'll see. We don't know that one for sure. So the difference there, I think they have a Pro Bowl wide receiver at the number one spot in CeeDee Lamb. They didn't have that in 2018. That was really a committee-type group. You are going to get Michael Gallup back probably at sometime in September, and you're hoping that James Washington, Mickey mentioned him, this is his best opportunity in his entire career to come in and play meaningful snaps. He did, for whatever reason, didn't really crack that rotation enough in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Jalen Tolbert, they're excited about. He carries himself like a pro and wants to, be a versatile guy to step in right away. I'm interested to see how he contributes. So you're going to get Gallup back at some point. You got CeeDee Lamb, but how does the rest of this group work out? That one stands out to me the most when we're talking about young guys.
Yeah, and they got to be right about CeeDee Lamb, that he can be the guy. And what I like about CeeDee Lamb is you can move him around. And we saw it yesterday. He came out of the slot a few times, right? He doesn't have to just be on the outside. And, when they let Amari Cooper go, I was sucking air through my teeth going, I don't know about that.
I think a lot of
right?
people were doing
I think
exactly
we're all,
that.
That's unanimous at this table,
I think
right?
everybody said that. Yeah.
And then I can't remember when it was. It was during OTAs or mini camp in there. Somebody out there on the internet, I don't know if it was ESPN or NFL.com, put together a 9-minute highlight video of CeeDee Lamb's catches. And they didn't repeat catches. They used 9 minutes of his catches. And I was sitting here and going,
I would hope they didn't repeat it, trying to make
like
it
half
longer.
The same thing, right, to fill time.
It's like 4 different looks, then they have like an on-field camera.
And it reminded me of some of the things he did last year. I think maybe in a lot of people's minds, well, he had drops. He had too many drops.
Yeah.
But he was dropping the ball because he was trying to do too much before he caught it. But these catches he was making were spectacular. Now, if you give him more opportunities, do you get more of that? Well, that's kind of what they're banking on. And the other thing, walking behind him yesterday, he's bigger than I remembered. Not that he grew 4 inches.
He grew an inch.
Right, but
he grew a half an inch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, half an inch. And that put on 10 pounds,
He said
right?
10 pounds, yeah. You can see it, you're right.
But he's got size out there, right? You can throw it up to him, and he'll go up and get it. I mean, think about the catches he made. Think about how he won the New England game.
Yep.
Okay, instead of getting 5 or 6 targets, well, what if he gets 10? And he still had 78 catches, I think it was.
Yep.
So they got to be right. They got to be right on that decision. And if that's right and you get Michael Gallup back to be Michael Gallup, and if Jalen Tolbert can do a Michael Gallup rookie year, you just could be all right. But we got to see it.
Do you think they're right?
I think they've got a chance. Especially if Gallup could come back and basically be the number 2 guy.
Got it.
And then you got Washington and Tolbert. And that's pretty good top 4. Now, The other thing they got to be right about is the offensive line.
That's where my concern lies.
They got to be extra right there.
Yep.
Because even with those guys last year, I don't know who rated this offensive line number 1 in the league, but
PFF
I did.
Yes.
What is it called?
I think PFF.
Pro Football Focus.
No, I don't use those acronyms.
Don't use that name.
No.
Okay. Let's not talk about that on there.
They struggled last year. Lale Collins did not play well at all.
No.
And then they tried to stuff McGovern in there at left guard, and he wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
You sat Williams down. Well, okay, we cut down on the penalties, but you didn't raise the quality. Tyler Biotish was starting for the first time in his career. He started 4 games his rookie year and then got hurt. So can he take the next step there? And then can Tyron Smith stay healthy? And then what do you get from your first-round draft choice?
Sure.
And
That's
so there's a
questions.
lot of
I was
ifs.
going to say, there's a lot of them.
No, but that's what we're here for, and unfortunately, we're not going to start finding out until August 1st, as you said, when they put the pads on, right?
Yeah.
Offensive linemen need their pads.
This provides for an opportunity for a segue and the tease heading into this final segment, so I'm going to take it. So when we come back on the other side of the break, what is our biggest concern? Mine is going to be that offensive line. So what are my concerns on the offensive line? We'll hear from Rob. We'll continue with Mickey when we come back with more Talking Cowboys after this.
Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is.
It's a non-fungible token. Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Back here on Talking Cowboys, the first episode of the 2021 season, live from Oxnard. Rob Phillips, Mickey Spagnola. I'm Kyle Yeomans as we continue to dive into the newest news around the Cowboys. It's nice to have some kind of news. We got to see the first practice yesterday, of course, the opening press conference, and then we take a general look at what this Cowboys team looks like heading into the 2022 season. Now, Rob, I'll start with you on this. Biggest concern heading into the season, because we've had some positives. There's some things that you are excited about. We'll get to that on the back end of the segment. But what is up at the top of the list of something that you definitely want to see some improvement on throughout training camp?
I think Mickey hit on it, and we covered it in the first Inside Training Camp together when we first got out here, is the offensive line. I mean, I think you go back to the San Francisco loss in the playoffs. That was the fewest rushing yards they had that year, or that season, I believe. Dak was pressured and sacked, I believe, the most of any game that season.
Yeah.
And that's the lasting image of the season there. And the guys will admit it, they didn't play well. And down the stretch, especially after the bye week, especially you look at the running game, it just took a dip. And guys talked about some of the pre-snap movement that defenses were using to try to affect them, and it worked. You didn't have Ezekiel Elliott healthy out there. Tony Pollard missed a couple games. A lot of what their offensive success the past few years has been built off the success of their running game, and they just didn't have it. And that's a big reason why Tyler Smith was the number one choice in the draft this year. Whether he starts at left guard, we'll see. I would think that that's a pretty good bet if he can show he can handle it here in training camp. Because he's got size, he's got strength, and Mickey mentioned Tyler Biadasz. I think that kind of goes together. You get a big guy up front that can help move the chains and move the people off the ball in the run game at left guard. The guy next to him at center, I think that's going to help him out too. So that's to be determined. And Mick mentioned the other things. I mean, Tyron Smith's health.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. You know, he's missed games every season since 2016, I believe.
Tyler Smith was a top 10 run blocker in the draft this past year coming out of college. I mean, that was where the strength of his game lied. He was a little bit, I'll say above average in terms of his pass sets and in space and at the tackle position. Of course, played majority tackle at Tulsa, not necessarily at guard. So that brings me to my other question of, is he really only in competition with Connor McGovern for that left guard spot, or is there even a potential with Terrence Steele? Because Mickey was talking about it a little bit earlier, but I'll get you first and then Mick can hit on it. But is there a chance he potentially slides out the tackle? He hasn't seen snaps yet, but is that at least an option?
I know Nick and I have kicked that around, and I don't really see it just because they have called him a left side player, at least to start out.
That's true. McCarthy did say that.
You know, the expectation is he'll get some backup left tackle reps. He'll work at left guard. They just want to keep him on one side. And that was one thing with Terrence Steele trying to move to left tackle in a pinch last year.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do, especially for a young player. I think the hope, Mick, is to Terrence Steele to build on what he did again last season. They really like his potential at right tackle and kind of slot Tyler Smith in on that left side where maybe he can fill in at left tackle if needed, but, hey, try to win that left guard spot right away.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if he doesn't win left guard, then maybe he's the backup swing tackle.
He's a swing, yeah.
But, look, they based the whole La'el Collins thing on Terrence Steele. So their evaluation of Terrence Steele had to be pretty high. It's not like okay, well, let's just do this. They didn't have to let La'el Collins go. They didn't have to eat $14 million in dead money to let La'el Collins go if they didn't think that, now they got to be right, but they're not hoping. They think that he played better. And I'll guarantee you he was a better run blocker last year than La'el Collins. La'el Collins was lazy last year. And so I think it's left guard or backup swing tackle.
So
and that's the way they're using them.
Is this another position, kind of like how we talked about with wide receiver, where they have to be right on this bet that they're taking? They push their chips in on CeeDee Lamb. They also did it on Terrence Steele.
Right.
It's the same sort of situation, but just on the offensive line.
You just have to be right, and I'll go back to what Jerry said, and he repeated it, right? This league is about projections. It's about projections. When you draft a guy, it's about projections, right? At least you got to see these guys play a year.
Sure.
Unlike Tyler Smith. But, again, they saw McGovern play. There's a reason why they drafted a tackle and said, okay, but we're going to start him off at guard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they were thinking that Connor McGovern was all that at guard and they're going to give him every chance, then they wouldn't have said you would have drafted something else maybe in the first round. So, yeah, but again, and here's the thing, and Mike hit on it just a little bit. The big thing on the offensive line is you need cohesion, right?
Yeah.
You get 6 padded practices out here.
Yeah.
6.
It is what it is. Mike's not happy about it, but every team's dealing with it. But it is a challenge.
20 years ago, they had 6 padded practices the first 3 days of practice.
2 days, yeah.
Yeah. And then you get 3 more against, Denver and the Chargers. That's 9. Now, the saving grace is you go home and you still got another week of training camp, and you got another week to ramp up before the season opener. But at some point, they got to say, okay, this is it. These are my 5, and let's go.
There is one more question mark I've got on the O-line, and that is swing tackle. Because, Tyron Smith, Hall of Fame caliber player when he's healthy. He's missed time, and if you don't have him, you're talking about young guys and projecting young players. They didn't stick with a veteran signing at swing tackle. They went with young guys. They've got a couple draft picks. So far. I mean, they
got the dry powder.
They got dry powder. They got $20 million plus. They could do something. But right now it's Matt Miletzko, it's Josh Ball, and maybe Tyler Smith if they want to try to kick him out there in a pinch. But that's a position where there's not experience there, and that very well could turn out to be a starting position if something happens to either Terrence Steele.
See, that might be the biggest swing for the fence. That you've got a rookie and a first-year guy who didn't play a lick last year, and you're looking at them to be your backup swing tackle. That probably you're gonna need, right? And
20
I know
games over the last 2 years.
Yeah, but you know
Smith
what? I will take Tyron Smith for 13 games a year before I put somebody else out there for 17.
Oh, I agree.
Right,
completely.
So for sure.
Yeah.
And 2020 was an outlier in that he missed 15 games or whatever.
Right.
It's basically been 3 starts a season.
Right, 3 starts a season.
Which are,
I can live with that.
Last year was 6, though.
It was 6. You're right.
So, I mean,
You're right.
even then, even last year, it was still a ton of time that he missed. He missed 14 games in that 2020 season. I mean, that's
their fault not having somebody there to take his place. Ty Nsekhe. I see him one time, and it's like, are you kidding me?
Mick had nobody else on that roster last year that he just was unimpressed by than Ty Nsekhe.
Well, every year.
Is he here?
Huh?
Is he here?
No,
he's not
you're
here.
right.
Look at
Who's
the
guy
guys
this year.
Look
I'm
at
curious.
But I haven't seen it yet, right?
You have a problem with every backup tackle.
But they did,
have, though.
because there's a
before
reason.
That, you were pissed off about Cameron Irvin,
Yes.
Cameron Fleming. The bottom line is, it's hard to find starting caliber offensive linemen. If
And
you're
what
not
was
a
the
starter
other?
in the NFL, then there's a reason.
What was
for
the
it.
other guy? Green.
Chaz Green. Yeah.
He was probably the best of all this stuff, and
Even
unfortunately,
then, he doesn't want to give him full credit.
he just had the Atlanta game,
Yeah, that was a problem.
And he
that
wasn't
Atlanta game was a problem.
and he wasn't ready for that. But that has hurt them, right? That Atlanta game cost them. It cost them getting in the playoffs because they shouldn't have lost to that team, even if they were playing in Atlanta. So now you're sitting here with 2. Maybe these young guys can play. I don't know. I'd never
just write this down real quick. Mickey,
I haven't
hates
seen
backup offensive linemen.
I haven't seen
go ahead and put
either
that
of
in
those
the
guys
notebook.
play in college. And if I did, I didn't know they were out on the.
Well, yeah, Josh Ball missed the whole last season. We've seen a little bit of him.
He wasn't active for a single game.
Right, didn't even play in preseason.
Well, that
because
was
of the ankle.
And
That's
they
right.
decided, you know what? He's
a red
probably
shirt
not
year.
ready. It's a redshirt year.
Right.
Now, let's see if it improves. We don't know.
Matt Miletzko, they love his athletic profile to play the position.
Had a great offseason.
But he's coming from North Dakota. That's a big jump if you're going to come in and play against NFL rushers.
Yeah.
If you have to. So, they're going a cheaper route on the salary cap than having to pay a swing tackle $2-3 million to back up Tyron Smith.
Rob, are you more concerned with the guard battle or the swing tackle battle on what it's going to affect this offense moving into 2022?
Well, I think you have to say guard because that's the starting position,
role.
and
Okay.
and you're counting on, if it's Tyler Smith, to really make a difference in terms of strength and getting the run game back on track first, and that's over a course of 17 games.
All right, Mick.
And the thing is, we haven't seen enough yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I've seen of him, I think there's hope. He's got good feet. Let's just start there, right? He's got good feet. These other guys that I talked about, they had terrible feet. And so at least he's got that going for him. But, yeah, the backup swing tackle, I think that's the one you're taking the biggest swing at, right? Because you judge this guy good
See
enough
what he
to
did
be
there.
in the first.
Yes.
Taking a swing at swing tackle?
Yes. The master of the pun.
Didn't even mean to do it.
I mean, you thought this guy was good enough to take in the first round. These other guys were they both fourth-round picks?
Fifth rounds.
Fifth rounds?
Fifth-round picks. Ball and
two,
let's go.
right?
Fourth round.
Fourth round, right?
Yeah.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
So, all right, let's see. And we'll get a better idea August 1st.
It's kind of like backup quarterback. Maybe they've just reached a point philosophically where it's like, all right, we're spending money on veterans that, it's been okay. It hadn't really panned out. Let's try to develop the position, and where you're not eating up your salary cap doing it.
Now,
but that again,
because if there's veterans out there now, I don't know. Oh, I didn't bring that book. I had written down a bunch of guys that were free agents, and I don't remember
It's
any
not a
tackle.
long list of names.
A tackle that was like, oh yeah, okay, that guy could come in.
Well, usually if you can play, you're not a free agent.
That's because that's what everybody needs, right?
Right.
And think about this. When I watched the little bit of the XFL and when I watched a little bit of the USFL, the problem is not the skill players; it's the offensive line blocking,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And the poor quarterbacks they got no shot.
No.
And so how do you evaluate them? Now, the easiest position probably to evaluate is the wide receiver thing, just what we talked about earlier, because you could see what those guys are doing if the quarterback can throw the ball.
There was no player better than the one that the Cowboys signed. By the way, fun fact, I tweeted this out earlier. The Cowboys have now signed the last 2 USFL
That was very
MVPs.
good.
Oh, yeah.
The other one, Herschel Walker, in
So they've
1985.
played. So they've played like
back-to-back
two
USFL
years
MVPs.
and 2 years and 40 and 40.
The Cowboys like their USFL MVPs. Real quickly, guys, before we wrap things up, what are we looking for?
But they had drafted him before they signed him.
You're right, they did. Ooh, good fun fact. Let's go. Mick coming in right at the end. What are we looking for next time? Oh, wait, Beam, are we doing shows Saturdays or is it just Monday, Friday?
So do we
we won't see a padded practice
in the rotation?
Yep.
Then do we get Monday?
We will be Monday in the rotation. So we'll be back on Monday. So the ramp-up period will be over with, but we'll get to kind of wrap that up and then head into padded practices. But what are you looking for over these next 3 kind of leading into the padded time?
I'm just looking to see how they're using guys.
Okay.
I noticed yesterday, they said in OTAs and minicamp that, we're going to see, if Chauncey Golston's, if he's versatile, we can play defensive tackle and defensive end. Well, they just had him at defensive tackle yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see no end stuff. I also saw DeMarcus Lawrence at defensive tackle when they were in nickel.
Yeah.
Which is something
and also
they did last season,
right,
a couple times,
yeah.
And I also saw Sam Williams inside also,
which he did in college a little bit.
So that's, to me, we get an idea of what they're thinking. Because we don't get to ask everybody everything.
You wrote in your column, you said, we're going to just have to stop calling these guys edge rushers and defensive tackles, just call them linemen.
We got linemen out there. and
kind of what they want.
Let's go. But don't forget, let's not put such a premium on rushing the quarterback and we give up stopping the run.
Agreed.
Because that's got to improve over last year.
No doubt. What are you looking for, Rob?
That's a good one. I would say just Dak's rapport with the wide receivers because we didn't get to see a lot of that in the offseason.
Yeah.
James Washington, this is really the first we've seen him yesterday.
First practice.
They almost hooked up for a touchdown deep in team drills. I thought Dak had a great ball down the field, just didn't quite come up with it from Washington. Jalen Tolbert missed time in the offseason. CeeDee Lamb was banged up as well. So this is an opportunity for Dak to really, and he did some in the 5-week period away on their own working, but this is a chance for us to kind of see how he's working with a new group. So that'll be what I'm watching for.
Can I throw out one more?
Yeah, sure.
We didn't touch on it. We probably don't have time to touch on it.
Probably not.
And so we have to wait till Monday.
Wait till Monday. It's the ultimate tease.
When are we going to see the kickers?
Ooh. Jonathan Garibay and Liram Hairelahu.
When did we see kickers last year?
Well, we didn't because he didn't kick all. He didn't kick all training camp.
I got a feeling we'll see it a little sooner this year.
Think so?
Yeah, I think
Is that
so.
a Rob Phillips prediction?
But let me
you have to.
Let me
have to
tell
see
you
what you got.
Liram Hairelahu, he's a worker because I went and watched the 10 o'clock news back in Dallas. The guys were doing out there at 8 o'clock.
He was kicking.
8:30. He was pantomiming kicking.
Oh.
He was out there practicing his steps and kick and follow through.
Interesting.
And this was, those guys finished at 8:30 our time, and he was just leaving the field. And he did it for like 30 minutes.
Hey.
I like it.
Hey.
So I'm
see it, be it.
I want to see
it,
Liram.
be it.
Put it, just manifesting it.
Manifesting.
That's what he's doing.
He was pretty good without a ball.
Oh, he didn't miss. All right, that's it for us here on Talking Cowboys. I'm manifesting that this group will be back together on Monday and talking more about what they've seen from the unpadded practices for the Cowboys. But for Mickey Spagnola, Rob Phillips, Chris Beam in the back, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long. Thanks for joining us on Talking Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?